Okay, today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make Nestle Toll House cookies, and we're just going to follow the instructions that are on the package. I'm also going to be highlighting the importance of properly measuring your ingredients. So first it wants us to get our dry ingredients prepared, and so I have my flour here to start with. It says I need 2 1/4 cups. So I'm going to use my dry measuring cup since flour is a dry ingredient or a solid ingredient. And I have a standard set of measuring cups here. I have a 1/4, a 1/3, a 1/2, and 1. I'm going to go ahead and just get my 1/4, since I need that, and my 1 cup, and just put the others aside for now. So since flour is easily packed down, I don't want to just scoop in and level. Instead, I want to use my spoon and fill my cup so that way it doesn't pack down. If I overpack it, I'm going to get too much. So just spoon it in like I'm doing. And I'm doing this over my container just so I don't make a mess. And I can either use the back of a knife, or I can use a spatula like this. Since most people will grab a knife, I'll just use that. I want to make sure that I'm using the flat edge, and I'm going to go all the way across here just to level that off. Like that. And I'll add that to my bowl. Since it's 2, I've got to do it another time. And I overfill it a little bit so that way I have plenty of ingredient to level off, and I don't have to worry about a hole or a divot. And there's my 2nd cup. And then I'm going to be ready for my 1/4 cup. And I did the exact same thing, it's just smaller. And I add that. Okay, so I'm done with my flour. I'm just gonna get that out of my way. And I have 2 more ingredients I need to add to my dry mix, and that is baking soda and salt. And I don't need a lot of these. I want to make sure that I use the right measuring tool for that I don't get too much. So I'm going to be using a teaspoon, and I want to make sure that I don't mix it up with a tablespoon, because a tablespoon is quite a bit of difference. It's like 3 times the size. So I don't want to accidentally confuse these. So make sure you take your time and look at your recipe so you end up with a good product. Now I'm going to measure the salt. I'm going to fill this up. Don't want to do this over my bowl, because if I get too much in here, then I can't take it out. So I'm going to just do it over my sink here real quick as I fill it up. And that way my extra just kind of goes down there. I could use a bowl if I wanted to. I'm just leveling that off, just like I did the flour. And I've got my salt in my recipe now. Just getting that out of the way. And next I have my baking soda, and that is right here. I can sometimes use the lid actually as a level and bring that across. Sometimes I don't get the best measurement with that, so I'm going to go ahead and just use my knife to level off, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. I know it's kind of hard to see with the lid. And I'm going to add that. And that is all the dry ingredients that I'm going to use for my recipe today. And I'm just going to mix that. And the reason I'm doing that is so that way I don't end up with a big bite of salt or baking soda in my cookie. So I'm just doing a quick mix. That's probably good. So now I'm done with that, and I'm just going to simply set this aside. Okay. Now I'm ready to start with my butter and my sugars. So let me get a new bowl for that. We'll use this nice big bowl here. And I need to add a cup of butter. I could do shortening as well. It's just kind of personal preference. You can also do margarine if you are allergic to dairy. I think that butter gives the best flavor. But like I said, you can do any combination of those items. So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap them. 2 sticks is equal to 1 cup. Each stick is a half cup. And I don't have to memorize that. I can look at my label and see that. Okay, so let's go ahead and unwrap and add. Another important tip here is to make sure that your butter has been left at room temperature for a little bit so it's nice and softened up. Got a little bit of butter that's kind of sticking around in there, so I'm gonna use my knife to help me with that. And we'll throw that in the trash. Got one more to go. Got that in there. And those look nice and softened up. Okay, we're going to add 2 different types of sugar to that mix. We're going to add just what we call granulated sugar or white sugar. And that looks like this. This one I don't have to worry about like packing down, so I'm going to be a little less worried about this versus my flour. So I need to get 3/4 of a cup. Well, in my standard measuring set, I don't have that. So I need to figure out what I can use in my set to make that. So I have a couple options. I could do a 1/4 cup 3 times, right? Or I could do a half and a 1/4 and get 3/4. So that's what I'm gonna do just because I don't like to measure any more than I have to. So we'll move these others out of the way. And like I said, for sugar, it's a lot easier because I don't have to worry about packing it down. So I can tilt my container and fill it up. So make sure I get it to where it's basically overflowing. And don't forget to use the back side of the knife, not like the top, because if I turn it like this, it's going to take a chunk out of it. And then I wouldn't have as much as I need. So there's my half cup. Not done yet, right? And here is my 1/4 cup. And I do the exact same thing. Get it heaping and level that off. So sugar is a pretty simple ingredient to measure. Now I need to do my brown sugar, and I have it in a nice little container here that I can seal up. Brown sugar likes to dry up on you if you don't properly store it. So I would suggest that you store it tightly. However, if it gets hard, there are some ways to recover it. One way to recover it is to put a slice or 2 of bread in there. You can even put the heel of the bread, which most people don't like to eat. And what it will do is in about a day, if you open it up, the moisture from the bread will go into the brown sugar and you'll have nice soft brown sugar again. If you can't wait for that though, you can also microwave it a little bit to try to soften it so you can use it that day. But my brown sugar is in good shape, so I don't need to worry about that today. However, unlike my white sugar, I need to pack my brown sugar. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. So the same amount, so 1/4 cup and a half cup. And what I'm going to do is just use a spoon. And I can use the same spoon I used for my flour earlier, as long as I have shaken it or tapped it off. Let's start with the half cup first. So I'm going to fill that up, and you'll see here I'm packing it into the cup. So brown sugar, unless it says to do something different, you want to pack. I want to go all the way up to the top. So there's really not leveling going on. Just packing it right to the top. And I've almost got it. I need a little bit more. Don't want to short myself on this. And that looks pretty good. Now, if I've done this correct, I should be able to take it and it would hold the shape of my container like it has here. I just toss that in. And my hands are clean, so no worries there. Don't forget to always wash your hands when you're getting ready to cook. It's important to keep everybody safe by washing in warm to hot water with some soap. Doing a good job. And we're going to do our last measurement of this, and that's a 1/4 cup. So together we get 3/4. And I'm just really doing a good job of packing that in there, right? So what makes it different than the granulated sugar? Well, it has something called molasses in it, so it takes on that shape. And there's actually 2 types of brown sugar. You have either what they call light brown sugar, which is what I'm using today, or you can use what they call dark brown sugar, and it just has a little bit more. It's darker color, obviously, kind of like the name sounds. Could I use it in a pinch? Yes. Would it make my cookies a little bit different? It would make my cookies taste a little different. It would make them look a little darker as well, but they'd still probably taste pretty good. I wouldn't necessarily make it if I was going to company's house or something like that, or trying to impress someone with my cookies. I wouldn't want to do that because it would make them look a little bit different than we're used to. And then I have one more ingredient I need to add to this, and that is a teaspoon, not a tablespoon, right? Teaspoon of vanilla. I don't want to measure over my bowl because if I get too much, I can't take it out. So I've almost got it. There we go. And I'm going to pour that in, and I'm ready to mix. And you can either mix things by hand, or you can use an electric mixer, which is what I'm getting ready to use here. So when you're using an electric mixer like this, you want to make sure that you, first of all, that you have it down in the bowl all the way, and that you start on a low speed. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, once you've done it for a little bit, you can probably pick up the speed a little. We just don't want it to originally come flying out of the bowl. Like I said, if you've let this butter sit out at room temperature, it's going to mix a lot easier for you as well. And then you might see that there's some sticking to the side, like I have, and some also sticking to the beaters. You can use like a rubber scraper and get that off and then mix again. I'm going to do that one more time because I see a few spots. I just want to make sure that's really well integrated into my mix. So here we go. Maybe another 30 seconds or so. And it's done. So I'm going to add my eggs. I'm doing something a little different than most people are doing probably at home. And instead of using 2 eggs like the recipe calls for, I'm using something called Egg Beaters, is the brand name I should say. It's a liquid egg product. And the reason I'm using that is because it is pasteurized, which means that I could consume this safely and I don't have to worry about getting something like salmonella. So I am going to measure out with a tablespoon to get my proper amount. Kind of have to know something about the equivalence of 1 large egg, and 1 large egg is equivalent to a 1/4 cup. So you might be like, well, wouldn't you add a 1/2 cup? In this case, it's almost a little too much to add the full 1/2 cup or 8 tablespoons. And I've just learned that from experience. So instead of adding 8, I'm going to add 7, and that's more than enough for our recipe. Otherwise, it gets to be a little bit loose. So there's 5, 6, and 1 more. And you might have noticed too that I'm not measuring over my bowl. And that's, again, to avoid me getting too much in there and messing up my recipe. So I've got that. And I'm going to add it to my mix, like such. And now I'm ready to mix again. It's going to be liquidy, so I want to make sure that I don't start too high. So I'm going to start low. And now that it's been on a little bit, I can increase my speed a little bit. And that looks good. Okay. And your mixer will set back like this, so that way you don't have to worry about it dripping all over your countertop. And I love to move things out of the way when I'm done using them, so that way I just don't feel distracted by them. Okay, now I need to go ahead and add my dry ingredients. So here they come back again. I don't want to overwhelm my mixer though, so I'm going to add just like part of it. And so I'm going to add about half. And I can just eyeball that. If I add it all, I might overwhelm my mixer. We don't want it to burn up the motor, so we're gonna start with half. So make sure it's all the way down the bottom before you start it up. If you don't, it will come flying out of your bowl and you'll have a mess to clean up. Nobody wants to clean up extra messes. And since I have more to add here, I'm not gonna really kick up the speed yet. I'm gonna get it mixed in pretty well here, and then I'll stop it. And I'll add the remainder of my flour. Just really wanna make sure I get all that in there. And I'll mix again. Remember to start at the bottom of your bowl and to start low. Once it's fairly well mixed, I'm gonna kick up the speed here. And that's what it looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and use my rubber scraper and just get the edges here so that way I get all that flour that's kind of sticking to the back, the sides. And I'll do one more mix here. Okay. So I'm almost there. At this point, I just need to add my chocolate chips. And I've used my 1 cup, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use the equivalent, which would be 2 of my half cups to get 1 cup of my chocolate chips. Now, if you look at the original recipe, it says to actually use 2 cups. But I've been making these cookies for quite a while now, and my experience just shows that it's unfortunately just too much. And you might think, well, how can you ever have too much of chocolate? I mean, that's not possible. But it actually can cause some problems. And one of the things it can cause a problem with is just, if there's so much liquid from the chocolate, then it just doesn't want to bake up quite right. So, I don't want to use my mixer anymore because it's too easy to shred the chocolate chips, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just use a wooden spoon. Now, if I really, really wanted to, I could use it. I'd have to be very careful and just go on a low speed and do it as quick as possible, like not spend extra time in here because I don't want to break them up. And cool little thing on your mixer is just a little button at the top that releases your beaters, right? And I can either use my rubber scraper or I can use a knife and get out any extra dough that is left in my beaters, like this. There we go. And I can either enjoy the batter off of these because I've used something that doesn't have, we don't have to worry about salmonella. So I could enjoy these if I wanted, or I can put them in the sink and wash them. That's what I'm gonna do today. And then all I have left to do is just to mix the chocolate chips in. Like I said, I'm gonna do that with a wooden spoon. Don't know that you'd wanna do that with your rubber scraper. It might bend it and snap it. Rubber scrapers are great for getting stuff off the sides, but really not that sturdy. So I don't wanna break it. And it doesn't take too long to get this mixed together. Now, my opinion and experience has been that if you put cookie dough in the fridge, it tends to have a better texture. And so at this point, we're ready to put this in a container and put it in the fridge. Okay, so now our cookie dough has had a little bit of time to chill in the refrigerator, and we will go ahead and put the dough on our cookie sheet. There's so much butter in these cookies that you don't need to worry about spraying it with any Pam or cooking spray. So I'll just go ahead and skip to putting it on the cookie sheet. You can use either a cookie scoop, like I have here, or just a simple spoon. I'll show you both ways. With the cookie scoop, I just fill it up, and then I'll push on the lever to get it on my sheet. Oops, it moved a little bit. And so I'll do a few like this so you can see with the scoop. And then I'll do a couple with the spoon so you can see that. You want to make sure that you space your cookies evenly. I would probably recommend on a cookie sheet about this size, not to put any more than, probably 4 rows of 3, so 12 cookies, because you want to allow room for them to spread, which they will as they bake. So that's what they look like with the cookie scoop. However, if you don't have a cookie scoop, you can just use like a spoon. And I will scoop that off with my finger. They don't look quite as uniform, but they're just fine to do this way as well. And then once I get my 12 cookies on the sheet, I will put these in the oven. My oven has been preheated to 350 degrees. Just depends on the recipe you're following. You can do 350, 375. The recipe also calls for about 9 to 11 minutes. We always want to go with that lower time because we can add time in, we can't take time away. So if I look at them and they're not done enough, I can always add some time to them. I don't need to like roll these cookies. They're what they call a drop cookie. So no need to worry about rolling them. And as soon as your cookies look like this, you're ready to put them in the oven, and then you'll set your timer. I'm going to set mine again for that lower time of 9 minutes. And in the oven they go. Okay, so my cookies have been in the oven for around 9 minutes, and I removed them and I put them on a pot holder or a trivet or something like that so you don't burn your countertop. And make sure that you're being safe when you take stuff out of the oven, and use pot holders or oven mitts. And see how I have mine setting on something to protect the counters. When I take them out, I want to wait about 2 minutes. I never want to remove them right away. If I try to do that, my cookie's going to scrunch up, kind of like an accordion. So I'm going to let them set for about 2 minutes. Then I'm going to use a spatula like this to take them off. And I can do one of two things. I can either put them on a cooling rack, or I can just put them on like a piece of wax paper. I never want to stack them together because if I do that, then they will stick together since they're really hot. So I'm going to wait about a minute, and then I'll put them onto the wax paper. All right, so I've let my cookies set for about 2 minutes. I'm going to remove them from the sheet, and they should remove pretty easily. I shouldn't have to like really scrape them. But as you can see, they're not going to squish together because I did let them set for about 2 minutes. A lot of students think that they need to take a toothpick and poke it kind of like you would a cake, but for cookies, they're different than a cake. So you simply just need to look and see if they're browned lightly. And everybody kind of prefers their cookie a little bit different. Some students want their cookie to be really soft, and some people want a crisper cookie. So it just kind of depends. I would try to make sure that it's obviously not raw, but your cookies should be able to remove pretty easily from your cookie sheet at this point, just like I am doing with mine. And then hopefully you have some delicious cookies. Enjoy.